Welcome, everyone. It is such a pleasure to have you here for the sixth installment of the Minister of Agriculture's webinar series, and today we are featuring TELUS Agriculture. I'm Danny Small, Manager of Sector Development with the Nova Scotia Department of Agriculture, and I'll be your moderator for today's session. We have a great lineup of speakers today. Now we'll have a few words from the Honourable Greg Moreau, Nova Scotia Minister of Agriculture.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's profile on TELUS Agriculture. Through the webinar series, we've been pleased to have TELUS Agriculture as one of three major supporters of the series, along with Farm Credit Canada and the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board. Today is an opportunity for TELUS Agriculture to let us know about their exciting and innovative work within the agriculture sector. TELUS Agriculture has set an ambitious mission for itself by tackling one of the most significant social challenges of our time: global access to safe, sustainable, and healthy food. Through international investments in new data management tools, TELUS Agriculture is leveraging technology and innovation to play a dynamic role in creating high-quality food and food products. Joining us for today's discussion is Dan Rayfuse, Commercial Lead for TELUS Agriculture, and Kevin Ram, Head of Sustainability for the company. Our session is moderated by Amy Melmock, Director of Sector Development and Innovation for the Nova Scotia Department of Agriculture. We're pleased that TELUS Agriculture will be bringing forward their support and their insights into our 2022 Ministers' Conference for Agriculture, taking place November 3rd and 4th at the Halifax Trade and Convention Centre. Early bird registration is open for the conference on the Perennia website, and I look forward to seeing you there.
Thank you, Minister. Amy Melmock could not moderate today, but I'll try my best to fill her shoes. Our webinar sponsors are Farm Credit Canada, the Nova Scotia Farm Loan Board, and TELUS Agriculture. Please join me as we watch a few short videos from our sponsors.
Food keeps our country going, and so do you. If you grow it, produce it, pack it, or move it, you're a key to our future. And we're behind you every step of the way. We're FCC, the only lender 100% invested in Canadian agriculture and food, serving diverse people, projects, and passions with financing and knowledge. If you're behind Canadian food, we're behind you. FCC. Dream. Grow. Thrive.
My name is Alphonse Vermeulen. My wife and I farm 50 dairy cows on a robot in Urbania, Nova Scotia.
We actually got married in 2014 and bought the farm in 2014. And originally we owned a tie stall in Princeport, and it was just January of 2020 that we moved to this site in Urbania.
We've been working with the Farm Loan Board since the beginning, when we first bought the farm in Princeport. The Farm Loan Board was more flexible with the challenges we were facing trying to enter the industry.
They helped us actually to do this site switch. They provided us with a loan that helped us to retrofit the barn that we're standing in right now. That was a tremendous help. It was a big step for us to move from the tie stall to the milking facility that we have here.
So with the loan board, we're character lenders, and we do like to develop relationships with our clients. And what that means is through the years, we get to see how people are progressing and how they're growing. We get to see their weaknesses as well as their strengths. We do look at, we review their financials yearly, and we like to see where we can make that better and make them stronger.
So we're really a complement to the other lending options. You know, we say that we don't compete with banks or other lending agencies. What we really want to do is provide a solution for farmers that is different than what's being offered commercially. Really diving down on the business plan, working with them to make sure that they have a partnership with other programs or granting opportunities is really what we're focused on.
They understood a lot of things that even we didn't understand, and it really helped us navigate some tough times when you're trying to get into the industry.
Agriculture fuels the world. But as our food needs evolve, so will our need for information. We're making a commitment to everyone, from seed growers to grocers, to leverage the power of connection and technology, to build trust, to link systems together, and to use resources and information in new ways. We want to build something stronger for everyone, to share the responsibility by cultivating partnerships that drive the industry forward, and harvesting ideas as transformative as the first horse-drawn plow. Because we believe in creating better food outcomes.
Thank you so much to our sponsors for their support. Before we move on, I wanted to remind folks that there are 3 sessions remaining in the webinar series. All are free, so please visit perennia.ca to register. I also wanted to take a moment to mention that the 2022 Ministers Conference for Agriculture will be held on November 3rd and 4th at the Halifax Convention Center. Registration is now open on the Perennia website. Now on to our session. I'm going to stop sharing. Actually, I'm going to leave this up while we do the introductions. Today, we have a joint presentation by 2 fantastic representatives from TELUS Agriculture. First, we have Dan Rafuse. After spending 10 years in the food industry, working across both supply chain and sales roles at Cisco, Compass Group, and Highliner Foods, Dan joined TELUS Agriculture in 2020 to help enable the future of the food supply chain. Dan currently heads up the commercial development for Muddy Boots in North America, working with organizations to unpack supply chain challenges and identify custom end-to-end solutions that enable greater visibility, trust, transparency, and sustainable practices. Joining Dan is Kevin Ram. As head of sustainability at TELUS Agriculture, Kevin owns the sustainability strategy and solution roadmap, working closely with customers to understand their needs and find smart but practical ways to drive sustainability outcomes across the food supply chain. Kevin has 30 years experience delivering digital business solutions as an employee of Accenture, Deloitte, KPMG, and SAP. I'm excited for this presentation, and I'll now pass it over to Dan.
Thank you for the warm introduction, Danny. And with that, I will share my presentation for today. We'll pop that up on screen now. So good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for having us with you today, and to the Perennia team for the warm welcome and introduction. We're looking forward to discussing TELUS Agriculture with you today and the ongoing work and services that we provide across the agribusiness, food production, and consumer goods sector. We're thrilled to have been invited here today to discuss the value chain that we can be unlocked and created through the digitization of the global food supply chain and its importance in creating a more sustainable and prosperous future. As Danny had mentioned, my name is Dan Rafuse, and I originally hail from Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. The province is very dear to my heart, as you can probably tell by the artwork over my shoulder. And as Danny had also mentioned, I spent the last 10 years of my career working across the food industry, across Highliner Foods, Compass Group, and Cisco in a variety of supply chain sales roles. Over the past 2 years, I've worked with Muddy Boots and TELUS Agriculture across the end-to-end agriculture value chain, working with private, public, and government organizations to support their digitization efforts across the end-to-end food and agriculture supply chains. This includes driving forward our solutions and partnerships across farming and agriculture, supplier management, quality management, and cold chain, and also partner with industry organizations to look for opportunities to solve some of the most pressing challenges across the food technology landscape, including environmental, sustainability, and governance requirements. Joining me today is Kevin Ram. Kevin is our resident expert and head of sustainability at TELUS Agriculture. Kevin owns our sustainability strategy and solution roadmap, working closely with customers to understand their needs to find smart but practical ways to drive sustainability outcomes across the food value chain. Kevin, would you like to say a quick hello and before we dive in?
Yeah, hi everybody. Delighted to be with you on the call today. Looking forward to the conversation and to seeing some questions come through later. Back to you, Dan.
Awesome, thank you for that, Kevin. And with that, we'll get started and bring into the agenda and topics that we'll cover today. I wanted to quickly provide an overview of the content and topics that we'll cover today. First, I'll touch on and provide some high-level insight into TELUS Agriculture, the reason that we've embarked on our journey to support the agriculture and food industry, and how we believe we can support the industry through our experience with industry transformation and technology. Next up, we'll spend about 15 minutes looking at the digitization of the supply chain, including industry realities, the journey to digital transformation, and the benefits of digitization. We'll then touch on how we are innovating across the agriculture supply chain with data insights, including what does digitization and data-driven operations look like across the value chain, connection through traceability, reducing food waste, and improving quality with cold chain management. We'll then spend the remainder of the time touching on sustainability within the agriculture and food value chain. We'll look at the context for retail, food, and consumer packaged goods organizations, including the benefit of adopting sustainable technology practices and providing you with an overview of the complex ecosystem. We'll then take you through a few case studies and finish up with a Q&A session to finish. So with that, we'll dive right in. We recognize that there's many challenges and inefficiencies today in regards to how we produce, distribute, and consume food and consumer goods globally. First, we're faced with a global food supply crisis. 2 years ago, COVID-19 began to highlight just how fragile our food supply chains are and the importance of improving the resilience across our food systems. We're increasingly facing many challenges, including the disruption in production, extreme weather events, and geopolitical issues. Meanwhile, we're also continuing to produce more goods that end up in the hands of consumers due to waste, spoilage, quality issues, and inaccurate demand forecasting. According to the FAO, the world's global population is expected to grow by approximately 2 billion people in the course of the next 30 years, reaching 9.1 billion people by 2050. By that time, we'll need to see an increase in food production and yield of approximately 70%, which will primarily be driven by advancements in technology. We're also facing high food waste costs, with a third of food produced lost or wasted, with half occurring within the supply chain. This amounts to roughly $940 billion annually, a staggering figure. Secondly, regulation and consumer demand are driving rapid change. Consumers are demanding more sustainable practices, traceability, and transparency across our food channels. Food traceability requirements are becoming more in-depth and comprehensive. No longer is it acceptable to know which region a product came from. Rather, we want to understand right down to that field level. This presents a large and complex data management challenge that the industry needs to tackle. Well, we will accomplish this by digitizing key points across the food value chain, whether through existing technology stacks, emerging technologies. We'll need to identify ways to better bridge the supply and demand equation from primary production right through to retail. And finally, wellness and sustainability is increasingly important to consumers. A 2021 study by PwC found 49% of Canadians will buy from companies that are conscious and supportive of protecting the environment. This has translated into more customers changing their consumption habits in favor of a lower environmental impact. We believe this trend will only continue to become more prevalent as consumers strive to make a positive impact across the global food supply chain through their purchasing decisions and start looking to buy from companies that align with their values. As a result, transparency is beginning to drive fast-moving consumer goods brand growth. In the retail space, the highest sales growth according to data from Nielsen is coming from products that tote sustainable farming and social responsibility at 14% and 8% respectively. Products toting sustainable resource management are seeing sales growth of 6%, and sales of sustainable seafood are up 3%. So what is our approach to help industry adapt to these growing needs of consumers? Well, when we put this into context around what TELUS Agriculture aims to do and how we want to support the industry, it's simple. Our mission is to create the best producer consumer outcomes, delivering digital insights that empower and connect customers, from producers to consumers, to improve the quality, safety, distribution, and sustainability of food and consumer goods. As such, over the past 3 years, TELUS Agriculture has brought together the teams and capabilities needed to transform the value chain. And we do feel that we're uniquely positioned to lead the way in agriculture technology on a global basis. Our team consists of 1,600 food and agricultural professionals located across 4 continents. Everyone from agronomists and meteorologists to data scientists and supply chain and trade management experts, we're bringing together a diverse global skill set to find new ways to support the agriculture and food industry. Today, we service customers of all sizes, from small to medium to large, and have over 6,600 customers globally, including 6 of the top 10 food and beverage suppliers and 9 of the top 10 agriculture companies. We provide solutions in 50+ countries around the world. We have a very unique end-to-end approach that doesn't exist anywhere else in the world today, and we believe that it's our greatest differentiator as we continue to find ways to add value for our partners and really drive industry transformation. So how do we begin to tackle these industry challenges? Well, we believe that we can tackle these challenges by working together and further connecting and digitizing our food and consumer goods ecosystem from production to consumption. Our point of view is to utilize data insights and artificial intelligence to support the optimization of all aspects of the supply chain vertical to realize real outcomes. By enabling shareable data and data insights, we'll be able to support things like reducing takebacks for input manufacturers with technology and data that allows for better demand forecasting, helping advisors and farmers optimize production and profitability and unlock new opportunities further into the supply chain, enable better supply chain sourcing and traceability for processors and manufacturers to meet evolving consumer demands, help optimize go-to-market and promotions to improve demand forecasting, and reduce food waste through improved tracking and logistics. These activities that support key industry requirements begin to connect the value chain to unlock the next phase of operational efficiency and strategic growth for participants within the value chain. So ultimately, what makes TELUS Ag different as a solution provider, and where do we go to industry to help move forward agriculture technology globally? Well, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a unique end-to-end approach that really doesn't exist anywhere else in the world today, connecting producer to consumer, right from seed to store. We want to eliminate data silos and trap data to support industry growth. So how do we do this? Well, first, by enabling cross-value chain collaboration and investing in the infrastructure to unlock new data insights and opportunity from input and production through to consumer shelf. We're looking at solutions and investments through the lens of ESG, investing in new technologies that support better outcomes. Kevin will share with you later on in this presentation. At the core of what we do also needs to consider best-in-class applications that enable food safety while improving on the quality of product outputs to ensure that we're doing our part to mitigate wastage and build greater trust and transparency across the food value chain. And finally, we are a true neutral brand enabler. We have no vested interest in selling physical goods or products. Our purpose is to work with our partners to enable their business and their value chains based on the outcome that they want to achieve. Now that we've provided some insight into the high-level capabilities of TELUS Ag and what we're bringing to market, I wanted to take a deeper dive into the details surrounding how we get to a digitized supply chain. We've seen the significant importance of digitizing the supply chain recently, with disruptions affecting almost every industry, from semiconductors and chipsets to inflated input and transportation costs, port delays, and extreme weather events. The recent disruptions seem endless and have caused significant challenges not only across the food industry, but for all industries. This has become top of mind for consumers who are seeing the impact in grocery stores, retailers, and on their wallets. Global supply chains are very complex and require partners from every part of the globe to cooperate and share data to ensure that food safety standards are being met and to enforce best practices that promote agriculture economics and feed the world's growing population. Organizations are looking to digitization to improve operational efficiencies, raise their brand trust, prove provenance, create a better understanding of the risk profile of their supplier bases, and ultimately gain a deeper understanding of performance of their supply chains over time. This allows organizations and provides them capability to start to spot trends and manage the performance of their end-to-end supply chains. If digitization is new to you or something that you haven't embarked on yet, there's a number of steps to focus on that may help with your digital transformation from current approaches. First, understand why you're doing it. Start by identifying what you should be measuring and why. Think about the various stakeholders that will consume the data and how it will be communicated. View compliance as the baseline and customer expectation as the goal. Secondly, take a risk-based approach. Identify the areas of greatest risk and focus investment into areas of greatest concern for you, your stakeholders, or your customers. In the agri-food sector, for example, common criteria range from food safety to human rights risks, such as ethical labor practices, or sustainability risks to your brand, such as deforestation. Also look for opportunities to digitize and automate your data, including removing paper-based processes across your business. Where possible, implement platforms that are digitized into your day-to-day operations, and identify systems that truly deliver value for your internal users. Cascading digital access to remote suppliers is also key, not only to ensuring more granular data in key areas, but also to help automate the mapping of your supply chain. This helps to identify your data requirements internally and share them across your value chain. Understanding how that data will need to be integrated to extract the insights you, your suppliers, clients, and value chain need to increase operational efficiency and provide what your stakeholders demand. Mapping your current systems and interdependencies can help as well. Your data is going to be less usable if it's trapped in a silo or if it's only exportable to CSV or PDF. Enhanced reporting allows you to understand what reporting you need and how the shift to integrated reporting will impact your organization's performance. Consider how reporting can be used to drive competitive advantage and differentiation for your business. And finally, provide reporting access to your partners, whether it be suppliers, retailers, advisors, or agronomists, to help them understand how they're performing on your criteria or understand your operational needs. Shared outcomes will help to better understand with better understanding and engagement to allow you to break down those data sharing barriers and have more detailed conversations and help strengthen your supply chain partnerships. So ultimately, how does digitizing your supply chain and farming operations help to strengthen your business? As we play across the food value chain from ag manufacturer to retailer to grower, I'll touch on some of the most compelling benefits that digitization can unlock. One of the key benefits of digitization is to help organizations understand their operations and improve overall visibility to leverage data for more informed decision-making. For ag manufacturers, retailers, and distributors, it's about seeing how their sales and inventory are tracking and where their products are at, including from production to farm. It's about getting a clearer picture of how the rebate programs are performing, forecasting demand, and getting more insights on how the products are being used on farm or on how many acres. For farmers and producers, having clear visibility with a single source of truth for current, past, and planned activities allows operations to plan to optimize yields and profitability by using the most up-to-date information. This includes seeing what's happening on farm, across different field zones, where their inventory is, and what can be sold. This could also include historical data as well. This could also include including inputs that were applied and when and if they were compliant. You also have the ability to extend visibility to third-party advisors for spray or treatment recommendations. And all of this represents an opportunity to reduce costs, create usable data, and improve efficiency. Simply put, we help farmers, operators, and producers make sense of their farm data and support it to be used in new ways. Once you understand operations and partners, you need to understand the areas of risk. For ag retailers and manufacturers, agronomists or growers that are working with customers or partners, it's important to know how they're adhering against your own risk areas. For agronomists, it may be even ensuring that their product recommendations are correct and following regulatory requirements to reduce liability risk. For ag manufacturers, it's ensuring their customers use products safely, efficiently, and effectively. Risk is often very subjective for organizations. Different players have different understanding of risk. Having a good understanding of risk is critical. It helps to inform your short and long-term strategic plan and who and what represents a risk to your brand or your operations. Digitization also enables better performance tracking with more granularity, whether a crop type, a field, a rebate program, or post-farm supplier. For example, with our data collection and program management solutions for ag manufacturers, customers can see accurate data and gain timely understanding of sales information to track and measure retailer performance and see how their programs for distributors, retailers, and growers are performing and adjusting accordingly. For growers, farm management software can help monitor performance, field boundaries, weather patterns, spray recommendations, and provide insights into crop records, cost of production, and yield. This allows you to really dig into and understand the performance of your field and farming operations. The data also allows you to benchmark your operations, understand what your best and worst performing fields are, and target problem areas of your operations to ultimately drive out wastage, improve operations, explore new markets, and enhance customer satisfaction. And finally, digitization allows you to tackle waste within your operations. Waste can take many forms in agriculture and food, whether actual food or inventory waste, harvest loss or loss of time, resources, or labor. Digitizing information can translate to savings through more efficient operations and performance insights. For growers, variable rate is an example where optimizing input use based on specific field or soil requirements and by crop type can reduce waste and minimize application of water and inputs. With new equipment and technology, this can also translate into better understanding of as-applied field data, equipment, and fuel usage metrics. It could also be knowing where inventory is stored and its condition and ensuring that product gets to market, selling it at the right time and price so it doesn't spoil. There's also examples of food retailers working back up the supply chain with producers to improve the quality of goods so they're less likely to spoil or not be sold, or to manage quality expectations depending on the growing season. We can also provide the capabilities to start to bring these data sets together under one view to accurately meet your quality goals within the manufacturing environment, including the ingestion of third-party data sets. This begins to unlock the cause and effect relationship, such as for processors and manufacturers, how are my suppliers performing in quality? What impact is that having on my internal performance and production? What is the relationship between quality, waste, and complaints? How much is it costing my operations? And can I predict the impact of quality on shelf life and complaint level at any point in the supply chain? By unlocking these insights, we can help to support you to reduce waste within your own business and across your supply chain. So far today, we've provided insight into TELUS Agriculture and our goal to empower and connect customers from producer to consumer to improve the quality, safety, distribution, and sustainability of food and consumer goods. With technology continuing to advance at a rapidly accelerated pace, where do organizations go from here? And what are we seeing on a global basis as key components in innovation within the agriculture sector and supply chain? Well, the reality is agriculture is still digitizing. Rural connectivity is a challenge for remote properties, with many solutions in the market today still needing to prove out their value over what's currently being used. Digital tools are needed to be able to increase profitability and sustainability to meet growing demand and resource use. The four main challenges today include fragmented data located in ag ecosystems and data silos. This is within farm operations or in specific organizations and businesses in the industry. Today, there are also many point solutions with limited API connectivity. There's a huge selection of farm tools for agribusinesses to use: farm management tools, weather, equipment, farm accounting, sales, and marketing. Much of this data is tracked data. It may be unavailable or incompatible with other systems or solutions, or not dynamic and out of date. Ultimately, the need is arising to improve the interoperability in ag so that data, whether operational or reference, is easy to access. This includes not only crop information and farm data, but also data that flows out of equipment such as soil sensors, sprayers, and connected machinery. So what is the payoff for organizations that find ways to solve these challenges? Well, according to McKinsey, better connections between soil, farm management, and farm managers, farm equipment and farm managers, could unlock 130 billion to 175 billion globally in value by 2030. So what are some of those needs that have become top of mind for the agriculture sector? First off, market intelligence and insight for ag manufacturers, distributors, and retailers. This allows these organizations to know how product sales and markets are performing based on accurate data to better forecast, make decisions, and collaborate. Across production optimization for growers and advisors, this can be data and innovation to support better decision-making, or recommendations based on critical centralized data at field, acre, and zone level. This helps unlock collaboration by being able to share data quickly and easily with those stakeholders that require it. Data management for ag manufacturers, distributors, retailers, and growers harnesses information to take meaningful action and streamline reporting, which allows for standardization, clear, convertible data that leverages and applies industry best practices. Marketing program management for ag manufacturers, distributors, and retailers, whether that be customized incentive programs, the ability to calculate and identify the best programs, or process and track payments. When we look at integrated IoT for advisors and growers, this can be enabling the integration of data from different applications and equipment like planters, combines, and sprayers, or irrigation equipment, reducing the need for manual entry. And finally, financial management for advisors and growers, allowing your operation to track total spend for different metrics, cost per hectare, crop type. This allows better collaboration between growers and advisors and creates a more shared understanding of what's been sold and for how much. When we begin to think about and envision a digital agriculture ecosystem, what does that look like and where do you start? This is an example of how we view a connected and digitized farm ecosystem and the levels of digital transformation. We approach it in a tiered approach with fundamental, extended, and complete capabilities. Digitization touches three key areas: data and information capture, API or connectors, and service and tools. And I'll go into more detail along each particular level. Just having an issue with my slide changing over. There we go. So at the fundamental level, data enables organizations to plan and track crop and field activities. You can monitor equipment and inventory to optimize yields and manage risk. So this is really, if you're kicking off your digital ag journey, this is really where you're starting. At the data level, this allows you to digitally report crop records, do inventory management and sales and accounting. At the API level, this enables you to start connecting equipment, sensors, and start ingesting third-party data that can flow across your operation. And at the service level, we can begin to start to manage and ingest imagery services as well. So this allows organizations to begin to digitize data and move away from paper-based records to create standardization and history. Provides you with operational visibility, where you can drive consistent and actionable data insights. You can create standardized reporting and open up new areas for collaboration within your ecosystem. At the extended level, once you start to digitize your processes, we can then begin to learn from data and make it actionable, using it to find new revenue generating cost-saving opportunities, or automating what's currently done based on real-time and predictive insights and outcomes of alternative options. At the data level, it allows for centralized reference data and automated cleansing. For example, this could be on a product label or a carbon credit system. At the API level, it allows for the connection and automation and autonomy between systems. For example, this could be your desire to pull data from an autonomous in-field equipment. And at the service level, it allows you to start utilizing your data for things like insurance claims and program management. As an outcome, organizations can begin to create extended reporting, start automation programs, and enable layered data insights and enhanced collaboration. So what does the complete capabilities and future state of the industry look like? Well, a complete set of globally applicable ag data and tools allows you to reach beyond your individual operation to connect the full value chain and improve collaboration. At the data level, it will allow you to allow for seed to fork data sets and the analysis of the onboarding of carbon programs. At the API level, it will allow automated satellite imagery and IoT integration. And at the service level, it will allow for insights into your warehouse stocks and includes AI and machine learning enhanced recommendation programs. Ultimately, the complete capabilities will allow you to create complete cross-value chain collaboration and enablement across your value chain. Take on services that leverage machine learning and AI. So looking for a decision based on real-time and predicted insights about likely outcomes of alternative options. You can do things like attribute-based sourcing and true chain of custody and traceability from end to end of the value chain. A set of these complete solutions will help organizations get to market faster, innovate more quickly, and lower the total cost of ownership of your ag and food applications. It takes time to build an application from scratch. Most successful software products and SaaS offerings today leverage pre-built components. Equipment and application integrations take time to develop and require constant upkeep, but for customers, they are an expectation, not a feature. And building and maintaining sources of ag data can be costly, and it's not as strong as a differentiator for your product as user experience or unique tools and algorithms are. Complete digitization enables your organization to increase speed and efficiency, enable growth and agility, accelerate your innovation, and provide lower total cost of ownership across your enterprise and business. Altogether, imagine a world where our food value chain is truly connected. It's not only about digitizing, but the value of connecting and exchanging information to drive actionable insights and efficiency at operational and value chain level for better traceability, quality, and sustainability. If we use this example and think of a blueberry farm and what happens pre and post farm and how that food is crossed along the value chain, we can see how digitization can help connect the different actors and players. For an ag input manufacturer, they'll know how the products are applied and have customers' insights, as well as how the programs are performing for retailers and growers. Our growers following production practices for prescribed programs, applying inputs and fertilizers correctly. For ag retailers, they have insights into sales and rebates, what products are popular where. For agronomists, they can understand what are the product recommendations and are they conforming with regulations. For the blueberry farmer, this enables compliance, farm management, sales, and financial data. How are they applying products in compliance with regulations? How can they track how blueberries are grown and passed down the supply chain to consumers? And they can use that information to market and drive brand reputation and supplier profile with downstream partners, whether that's sustainability or organic provenance. Manufacturing distributors, they can leverage sales and financial data, supply chain data, quality data. So what are the conditions of blueberries as they're transported to farm? Are they kept at optimal temperature? How can they ensure they're in a quality state to extend shelf life and product salability? And what's that farm to fork journey? For grocery stores and food service and retailers, they can leverage quality, promotion, and sales. How are the blueberries selling? Should growers plan for more next season? Which of their suppliers' foods perform better? And what are the supply and demand signals? Can they communicate demand back to growers seamlessly? And finally, for consumers, they have insight into the journey of the product. How were the blueberries grown? Where were they grown? And what was the path from seed to shelf? With greater digitization, not only in agribusiness, but further downstream, the ability for our industry to demonstrate food traceability, quality, and sustainability is significantly enhanced. So you've probably heard enough out of me for today. And with that, I will pass it over to Kevin Ram, Head of Sustainability, who will speak about the tremendous opportunities that exist across sustainability in ag. So thank you for your time today. And Kevin, over to you.
Thank you, Dan. Hello, everybody. So that's a great segue from digitization of value chains for a deeper dive in sustainability. So I'd like to start with an overview of some of the key sustainability challenges we face today in the agri-food sector. So if we look at the world population, it's on track to reach around 10 billion by 2050, and that requires a corresponding 70% increase in food available for consumption. In parallel, the costs of inputs needed for agriculture and to generate that food is rising, whereas we have no additional agricultural land or fresh water coming available. And despite the increase in food demand and the challenges that we face, according to the FAO, about 30% of all food produced is wasted, and around half of that waste occurs during food production, and that's pre-consumer, and about half of that waste is with consumers. Now, food systems, including agriculture, are responsible for around 30% of global greenhouse gas emissions, with primary production or farming around half of that, which is something like 17% of greenhouse gas emissions globally. Agriculture accounts for around 70% of the world's freshwater usage, and of course that includes areas where there are water scarcity issues. Related to that, irrigation agriculture produces 40% of all food worldwide. And that means that there's future challenges in the availability of fresh water, and that's going to have serious knock-on effects to food production for those systems that require fresh water through irrigation. Around 1/4 of arable land is currently degraded and needs restoration before it can sustain crops. And in addition to that, according to the FAO, we're on track to have 95% of the world's land degraded by 2050. Now, I'm quoting a lot of global statistics here, but Canada broadly and Nova Scotia more specifically show a lot of these global challenges. So if those are some of the challenges we face, there are lots of potential opportunities for improvement. Move forward, please, Dan, one slide. And these improvements can come about through practice changes and through ways that we can improve the whole agri-food system, including by digitization. Since the dawn of the plough, through tilling and fertilization of soils, we've given rise to a significant proportion of the greenhouse gases currently accumulated in the atmosphere. But with that said, we now have an exciting area of potential, and that is to apply regenerative practices and better soil management so that farmed land turns from being an emitter of greenhouse gas to being a remover of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere by sequestering carbon into the soils and reversing this historic pattern. It's worth considering that soils contain around 3 times the carbon of the atmosphere. That gives you some good context for the potential that agricultural land has. It may be able to offer 1/3 of the total combined reduction and sequestration that we need by 2030 if we're to hit our net zero targets across the world. To give that some scale, 2030, we need to halve the net emissions from the baseline of 2020. And that is something which we're finding very hard to achieve, but agriculture holds a couple of keys to help us do something which is essential in the short term, and that is to find immediate measures for carbon removals. There are many offers and approaches that promise to deliver what we call technical removals of greenhouse gas in the future, but many of those are either not online or at scale. Regenerative agriculture holds the opportunity to deliver immediate carbon removals based on practices that are workable today. One of the benefits of regen agriculture is really around the co-benefits it brings, and that would include not just reducing emissions, but better resilience for crop growth, especially in the light of climate change, improved soil health, better productivity, water quality improvements, and biodiversity benefits. Also, food grown with regenerative practices have been demonstrated to be more nutritious with higher levels of vitamins and minerals. And this takes us nicely into the opportunities able or available when consumers are driving more sustainable food and the demand for more nutritious food. A recent estimate indicated that consumers spend around 150 billion on sustainable products today, and that's only going to grow in the future as Gen Zs and millennials are driving increased spend and better brand affiliation with those businesses seen as being more responsible and able to provide the eco products that they desire. Now, with Canada as the 5th largest exporter of food globally, there's an opportunity for Canada to differentiate some of its key exports on sustainability credentials. Indeed, in some markets, you might only get access to that market if you can evidence the minimums in sustainable credentials, particularly for affluent countries that themselves have high standards. There's an initiative underway called the National Index on Agri-Food Performance that aims to establish harmonized measures for sustainability, and this would enable more consistent, reliable assessment of Canadian products and also a pathway to supporting and continuing Canada's position as an international trading partner. As many of you might know, Nova Scotia has a program called Creating a Clean Agricultural Technology, which recognises some of these opportunities and also the opportunities that digitization brings. Move forward, please, Dan. So what's driving sustainability action in food supply chains? One area that's front of mind for us, of course, is climate change. And here we can see a range of actors bringing impetus to the food supply chain sustainability progress. Firstly, we've got businesses who are responding to greater expectations for action on climate change. As mentioned, we have consumers driving demand for more eco-friendly products, but we also have investors who themselves, through the form of institutional investors with ESG mandates and requirements, are looking to invest in the better businesses, the stronger businesses who've got great sustainability track records. In addition to that, the regulatory regime and compliance standards that are out there today are creating carbon markets and markets for other ecosystem services, and governments are encouraging the growth in those kind of markets. So if we think about the corporate sector particularly, we see around a third of the world's largest 2,000 businesses having set or published net zero targets, and many SMEs are doing that too. Those targets are commonly under a framework called the Science-Based Targets Initiative, the SBTI, and this harmonizes target setting, helping avoid greenwash and keeping companies accountable for their long-term commitments, but also for short-term actions. Importantly, with these net zero targets being set by companies, many food manufacturers, retailers, and service organizations are required to include upstream emissions in their target setting and their reduction programs. That means the emissions that are happening in the food sector in primary production. And that ultimately means that for the big brands downstream in the food supply chain, for them to meet their targets, they will need to engage with and collaborate with their producers to help enable positive change in the way that food is produced. Many of these businesses that set net zero targets are also ultimately going to have to buy offsets to meet their commitments. And that in turn is fueling a voluntary market for carbon credits. The market's predicted to be worth around 50 billion by 2030, and that's a 15 times increase on today. The voluntary market includes farm-based removals through the kind of regenerative practice that we've mentioned already. So indeed, if you look at the existing commitments made by companies, just over the next few years, we can expect a significant increase in demand, and those companies are going to look to be buying carbon credits as they seek to meet their net zero commitments, and that will create interesting opportunities for agri-food to be able to provide those credits. And equally, whilst we're talking about carbon credits, there's the emergence of a set of voluntary markets for other sustainability initiatives and dimensions, such as biodiversity. Next slide, please, Dan. So if we're going to move to more sustainable value chains in food or beverages, and we want to move the needle with progress, then each player in the food and beverage business ecosystem has both an opportunity, but also a responsibility to contribute to more sustainable operations and more sustainable products. From farms and ranches through ag-retail companies, input manufacturers, service providers that support them all along the value chain, to processors, manufacturers, retailers, and consumer businesses. There are some new players in this ecosystem or value chain, including, for example, those organizations that are setting up the reward-based programs. In addition to that, financial institutions are becoming a key part. As described, they want to invest in the most sustainable businesses and wish to ensure that their existing assets are safely invested. Additionally, financial organizations are offering green loans to farms on the basis of improved sustainability. And we have NGOs and industry groups all working together to develop practical frameworks and resources to help the industry move forward with credibility and with trust. So that said, when we think about sustainability and we think about the various initiatives underway, move forward please, Dan. I want to describe to you what developing a sustainable strategy feels like from the perspective of TELUS Ag. If you think around all those things that get connected or associated with sustainability, including natural capital and the environment, products, supply chain, etc., there's a very broad church of different labels. And in setting a sustainable strategy for a business, and indeed TELUS Ag have to go through this process too, we have to think around what really has a priority. Typically, businesses would do a materiality assessment, and in that materiality assessment, they'll work through what's most important to them. And in that process, TELUS Ag have arrived at these topics we see as the most fundamental topics to approach. We've got carbon mitigation and net zero, which we've talked about already, regenerative ag and biodiversity, and waste have been themes that we've described. And Dan's already mentioned traceability, risk and provenance. I think a key feature is how we can have digitization to support these initiatives. And so here you can see some of the shared or common areas where digitization can really drive sustainability outcomes, from improving data capture through to simplifying processes and measurement, all the way across to helping connect in appropriate services. So if we just move forward, I want to give you 3 examples of how digitization can transform agricultural sustainability. Firstly, carbon credits, which is, as we said, an emerging part of the opportunities for farmers to benefit from sustainability. Secondly, an example of how we can simplify sustainability measurement. And thirdly, collaboration. Sustainability is something that no organization can do alone, and collaboration is key for us to be able to make progress across the value chain. So let's just look at farm carbon credits briefly. This is a view that we have on how farm carbon credits can benefit from digitization and the approaches that we can bring. So we're looking at farm carbon credits as an area where there's a strong need to connect in related services such as remote sensing and telemetry, as well as crop prediction models, as well as soil sampling, to be able to better understand what's happening at farm level, and also modeling services to work through what kind of practice changes are going to create the real removals that we need to see. In addition to that, we need to be able to support farmers in making sense of farm carbon credits. And we think there's a really important role that TELUS Ag can play, where our farm management systems can incorporate farm carbon credits as something that's part of the process of planning tomorrow's crop and recording what got achieved. We also want to do one piece which is additional. It's recognizing that the area of farm credits is really based on science that's still emerging, and we want to support the research programs that rely on good quality data to understand what works. Move forward, please, Dan. To the next slide. Okay, so the second use case and the second example of where digitalization can support supply chains is really around how we can help collect and also drive progress with the improvements that we need to see in supply chains. So we've recently created a solution which is very much around how we can simplify the sharing of data, make it easier for growers to be able to provide the information that's needed to support sustainability assessments, but also to make sure that we can tackle some of the more complex sustainability topics. And that means connecting in trusted models for things like biodiversity or carbon. We also need to make sure that when we think around sustainability in a supply chain, it's really engaging producers, it's engaging growers, helping them to collaborate and really empowering them with tools, and not having something which is really just a pull from the brands at the end of the value chain. Everyone needs to come together to work on these problems, and we need to have a shared view on where we are today and what kind of opportunities there are to improve. But particularly for those brand owners that have the means to incentivize improvements in their supply chain, digitization gives them a path to better inform their supplier programs and to know where their opportunities are. So the final example today around digitization is a recent project that TELUS Ag were delighted to be involved in. It's with the side platform Sustainable Dairy Partnership. And last year, we launched a solution, having worked closely with the Sustainable Dairy Partnership and their members. And that solution was all around being able to better collaborate with processors of dairy, being able to provide harmonized information on progress in their sustainability agenda, and for buyers to get access to that information in a way that's clear to understand, shows the progress made today, but also shows in a very clear way the intended progress or targets for the future. Digitization there took away a difficult task of collecting data through other means, but brought into a platform information that was credible, verified, and easier to access. So those are three examples of where digitization has helped drive sustainability across the value chain. And with that, I think we'll just hand back to Dan to summarize what we've covered so far.
Thank you. Myself on mute here. So thank you for that, Kevin. Very insightful and informative around what's happening today in the world of sustainability and carbon prices. Thank you very much for that. So just in summary, just wanted to quickly highlight what we covered today. So I think if there's one key message, is that trapped data continues to exist within agriculture. There has been an increasing rise of sustainability requirements from B2B organizations, consumers, and financial services organizations. And in order for the industry to continue to move forward and accelerate tech adoption, the industry needs to look to expand partnerships to enable and create a contextualized and connected value chain. This will be achieved through the digitization of key areas of the supply chain, which enables simpler access for sustainability-linked initiatives to drive organizational progress. And at the end of the day, as Kevin noted, it really will take all of us to move forward in the industry. And we're excited to have the opportunity to be a part of that long-term journey, and look forward to partnering with organizations in Nova Scotia and by extension the Atlantic provinces to drive forward progress in the industry. So with that, we will open it up now for a Q&A session, and look forward to answering any questions that those in the audience might have today.
Great. Well, thank you both very much for the very informative presentation. You both touched on many important and interesting topics, including the need for traceability, food safety, quality, sustainability. Consumers demand to be informed so they can understand what foods they're eating, how it's made, where it comes from. One of the key takeaways for me was the digitization journey. It's not uncommon for producers to continue to use pen and paper to manage their data. And so thanks for speaking to the journey of digitization to help folks kind of visualize what this process looks like and where they may begin the journey. And Kevin, I mean, you shared some pretty staggering global statistics there on food supply. Really makes you think of where we're going and some of these huge numbers that are being thrown out for 2050. Pretty incredible. So before we jump into the Q&A, I see a couple questions popping up in there. I just wanted to ask you a couple things. One, why did a telecoms company get involved in agriculture? And what are the 2 to 3 most important things a food business might do today on supply chain, sustainability.
Dan, would you like to take the first one?
Sorry, can you say that again, Danny?
Yeah, sure. So the first one was, why did a telecoms company get involved in agriculture?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to take that. I think historically, if you look at the way that TELUS has operated in the Canadian telecom market and digitization market, we really do believe in that social capitalism. So looking at ways to help our communities and support our communities, whether that's in our past investments with TELUS Health, we are taking that same approach with agriculture. At the end of the day, the food industry and food production industry is very foundational to Canada. As Kevin highlighted, we are the 5th largest food production country globally. And much of our GDP is a result of food exportation. So we want to ensure that we're supporting businesses at home, helping them to continue to be leaders on the world stage and support their digitization efforts as we move forward.
Great, thank you very much. How about 2 to 3 of the most important things a food business might do today on supply chain sustainability?
I think I'll take that one, and thanks for the question, Danny. I think looking at what food businesses do today, and I appreciate that food businesses come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And so across the board, whether you're a small or a larger business, I guess if you want to get involved in sustainability, one of the first things to do is really try and understand what impact you can have, what's material for your business. Depending on what you sell, depending on where you are, there are different dimensions to what you might achieve. And there are a number of good programs out there that try and support you with helping to answer that question to yourself. What is it that you can do? What's more important? For many businesses, if they're involved in buying from other suppliers, then typically you want to understand your supply base first and be able to use some of the readily available information on the kind of products in the food world, especially the kind of crops that might be more important and where you might want to put your focus. So a good example would be soy, for instance. Soy has a very different story depending on where it's been sourced from. And so there are perhaps some simple areas where you can look across the products, the categories that you buy, decide where you want to focus. Also, the volume of what you buy is clearly important, or the value of what you buy is clearly important. So do some initial assessment on that. So that's point number one. And then very quickly with point number two, it's about engaging. It's about opening dialogue with your suppliers. So if you are able to start that dialogue, then typically your suppliers are facing the same challenge. They want to be responding to sustainability as well. And these things are better achieved when you actually come together. And I think the third and final thing is have some reasonable business records in terms of what it is you do, who you do it with. And so having the digitization of your supply chain is going to always help you. That's a starting point from which you can then start to measure and track your progress.
Excellent, thank you very much. So we're going to jump into the Q&A now, and just being conscious of time, I think we're to wrap up by 1:15. So I see lots of questions are starting to pop up here, so that's excellent. So I'll read the first one. This one comes from Darren Penner. Thank you for the question, Darren. Using the data that TELUS is capturing, are we able to quantify the most efficient means of carbon sequestering in plant matter? And is there a possible future where we strategically grow plants specifically for their ability to hold carbon?
I think that's a great question. And I'll give you an honest answer. Today, what we can do is to be able to help farmers understand the kind of things that would sequester carbon and allow them to work through their current process, current operations, and their plans, and start to fold in the carbon journey and the carbon outcomes into that. That's a program that we're actually working on today. But in terms of the specifics of the question, and I think it's a great question, in terms of carbon credits, most of those are paid because of activities within the soil, and so organic matter being grown or rather achieved within the soil ecosystem itself as opposed to the plants. I think there's certainly a good data set out there in terms of the crop rotations that improve what's going on in soil, as well as the way in which you manage the soil. But I think there is going to be a really interesting growth story with regards to plants and crops that have the least impact in terms of when they're grown, but also the positives that they create in terms of nutrition, in terms of benefits to having healthier soils, in terms of resistance to drought. And that's an ongoing story, of course. And I think there's much further we would like to go and much more we could do to try and help unlock the value of the data we collect and help drive those research programs, as I touched on just a short while ago.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. Next up is a question from Amy Melmont. TELUS has created sustainability with large, already digitally enabled organizations in dairy. For Nova Scotia, where operations tend to be smaller, how do you suggest we build collaboration?
I think probably the starting point to that is to actually work with kind of programs that are really trying to embrace businesses of all sizes. I mentioned the Sustainable Dairy Partnership, part of SIDE platform. Depending on where you are, there may be other programs as well as that one available. But those programs are trying to work with the whole sector, and they bring resources and also guidance with those kind of programs. So joining those programs has got to be a great starting point. And as you've seen, those programs themselves are also trying to offer the tools because they want businesses of all sizes engaged. So I think that would be a great place to be. If you're not already working with a digital tool to understand what's going on in the dairy, then of course moving from paper to digitization is everything we've talked about today, and it will make it easier then to engage productively with those programs. So I'd say that would be the second piece. Join those programs or join a program, but then secondly, you may get access to good tools, but having your own good records in place is only going to be a big positive step.
Great, thanks for the question, Amy. Next is an anonymous question. How do you balance competing business demands, such as achieving sustainable outcomes and driving financial results?
You want to take Kevin, or you want me to?
You go ahead, Dan. We'll hear your voice.
All right. And feel free to top up. So this is a great question. So Kevin and I have had many conversations about this and love to talk about this topic. I think there's been a shift in business mentality around how we view sustainability within the business. Most organizations now are moving towards that triple bottom line, where you're actually finding that sustainable business practices are actually having a stronger impact and more financially beneficial impact on results for organizations. If you look at some of the activity that TELUS has undertaken to really be a leader in this side of the business, we've issued and have created sustainability-linked bonds offerings, which came to the market last year. So really holding our own organization accountable in a financial way to ensure that we're meeting our targets. Kevin, is there anything that you'd like to top up on there?
I'd only add that it's unfortunate if businesses feel it's an either or. And I guess what we hope is that the regulation and the incentive mechanisms out there better align these. And a good example, coming back to what we are looking to deliver for farms in the future, we would like it to be easier for them to see, if I do these programs, if I put these practices in place, does that put me in a better position, so that they get a holistic view on, I'm trying to run a business and I want to be sustainable, but I want to know what I'm getting into. So we want to provide the tools that allow for that holistic approach of, is this particular plan for my next crop cycle or my next farm year, including sustainability, is that going to get me to a good place? And so hopefully we can provide those tools that bring the things together. But what we need and what we want to see is for the backdrop, the overall context, to make sustainability something that's rewarding and not something that business feels they have to volunteer to do at their own expense.
Excellent, great points. You guys are doing a great job on the hot seat here as questions continue to roll in. Up next, Andrew Yoshioka. What's the opportunity for pan-Canadian analytics of data towards supporting Canada's role as a trusted global exporter of high-quality food?
Well, maybe I'll jump in on that from a sustainability perspective. And I mentioned already that there's an initiative in place today, and there's a lot of big Canadian brands and organizations signed up for that initiative about harmonizing the measures for food. And it's got great buy-in. There's a lot of really smart people working on that program. And the outcome is intended to be something which would allow businesses to pick up, and government as well, to pick up a framework that allows a single source of truth with regards to what does it mean to measure the sustainability of food. And that would include what dimensions or what particular metrics and KPIs get measured, what's the method behind that measurement. And the intention is that you can then have an open book approach from a perspective of Canada as a trading nation, where you can provide information around these are the credentials of our products, but equally, this is how we measured it, and here's the evidence base that goes with it. And that increasingly is what we expect to see here in the UK. I know this is a very newsworthy story because we're just going through the process now of striking a trade agreement with Canada. And I know that sustainability is certainly part of the thinking there, because clearly, if you import food from another country, you'd like to think that the food comes from kind of standards and approaches that your own country tries to uphold as well. And so we're hearing a very clear voice here. It's actually very newsworthy, and I'm sure it works both ways too. So I think there's a great opportunity. Digitization is clearly an important part of that as well, because everything about metrics and indicators typically needs good quality data and really automation or efficiency in that data collection as well. So I think there's an exciting program, and I'm looking forward to see that unfold in the next year or two.
Excellent. Thank you, Kevin. So there's just a couple questions left. We have two from Darren Penner and one from Shelley Jerlink. So Shelley Jerlink asks, she's from the milk movement. She's an ag business specialist for an ag tech startup in the dairy supply chain with clients in 3 countries. And she's wondering, does TELUS carbon trading platform integrate with other supply chain platforms? And 2, does TELUS have specific buyers already engaged in carbon credit purchases?
Well, let's be clear first, we don't yet have a carbon trading platform up and running. What I showed was the kind of technologies that will be brought together to really make farm carbon credits fly. And that's a program that we're working on this year, and hopefully we'll have news from the market later in the year. We certainly want to make those kind of tools available to as broad a market as possible. So I think that, so the first question is a bit of clarity there. The second one, do we have specific buyers already engaged? Well, not yet, but I think there is one thing I would like to share. I mean, we are servicing existing carbon programs already through our technologies. I don't know if I can name them, but there are some well-known carbon programs already in place, and their technologies are being used to help move data along the value chain and to be able to provide efficiencies and automation there. So we are involved in the carbon credit schemes. I think the final piece, and I'm looking at the specifics of the question here, we currently have carbon schemes up and running for beef. That's not dairy. I appreciate there's a big difference. So we do have tools there, and we do have a program in place that allows those folk that use our solutions for feedlots to be able to then connect into some of the compliance markets. So we've got, I guess, a scattering of different initiatives, but we don't really have a trading platform in place yet. That's something we're considering for the year.
Great, thank you very much. So we've hit 1:15. I know, Darren, you have a few more questions. So perhaps we could, you could send me an email, Darren, daniel.small@novascotia.ca, and I can reach out to Kevin and Dan to get some responses to your questions. We very much appreciate the questions and really appreciate your time here today, Dan and Kevin. It was an excellent presentation, very informative. So I just want to thank you for your time. Had a great time today.
Fantastic. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you today, and happy to support the Nova Scotia industry. And if anyone has any questions for Kevin or I, please feel free to reach out or connect directly with us on LinkedIn. Always happy to have a discussion and conversation around digital ag and the adoption across Canada.
Super. And then from my side, there were some great questions fielded. If we haven't answered them sufficiently today, I would happily field those offline. And thank you for providing such a great platform and opportunity.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your time, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.